Good afternoon. Our today's video lesson will continue the first one. As you remember, we spoke about exam bite size on the example of our national textbook. Today the topic of our lesson is making a good oral presentation. Actually, there are some tips that I'd like to share with you, or some ideas how to avoid typical mistakes. Let's imagine the situation of the exam. I'll be the examinee and we have an examiner in this classroom. We usually answer the exam when sitting. So, do you remember our text that I asked you to read is located on pages 271 to 272. And I believe that it's better to see once than to hear 100 times. So that's why I will demonstrate how I would answer if I were in your shoes. So you remember that there is a typical phrase to begin with. The text I have just read is an article describing an international fair where some scientific and educational Belarusian companies took part in, which our companies took part in. It took place on the 10th of April, and the author describes what the events included and whether our country did a good job or not at this exhibition. The author says that the Belarusian exposition enjoyed great popularity. Let me read out the extract which describes this. The Belarusian exposition at Hanover Messe enjoyed great popularity among foreign partners. They said that Belarusian scientists offered a great variety of promising projects and that they were extremely attracted by their value for money. Our country was also able to sign some really valuable agreements with such countries as Russia, Germany, the Czech Republic, Saudi Arabia, and some others. It is really necessary to take part in such international fairs because then our companies have an opportunity to demonstrate their achievements on the international market. They can find reliable partners and also sign some long-lasting trading agreements. Actually, the key to success is being proactive, which means not to wait for opportunities, but to create them yourselves. This is it. As you can see, I'm not reading out the questions. Your examiners will have the questions. So, and you can have a look at them and then organize your answer into a complete story. Then it makes a good impression. The same can be done with your listening task. The questions are in front of you, and you can start by saying, for example, I have listened to a radio program which describes, in our case, the Music Village Festival. And then you just start answering questions without naming them. It creates a better impression. Now, as for speaking, some typical mistakes are connected with you asking questions and giving advice. Imagine that your examiner asks you,
what questions would you ask your friends from abroad about their countries?
Once again, when asking questions, it's better to demonstrate that you know different types of them. Please do not report them, no way. But if you want to link them somehow, why don't you use the linking phrases like that? To begin with, has your country been an independent state for centuries? Then, is it better to visit your country in winter or in summer? Your motherland has a lot of tourist destinations, doesn't it? Then, what landmarks are worth visiting in your country? And, for example, I wonder if you will meet me when I come to visit your country. You see, I have given five types of questions. Yes, and at the end of this lesson, you will have a look at them once again. The same can be done with giving advice.
What sites in your country belonging to World Heritage would you advise a foreigner to visit?
So here you can give advice right away, but I believe that some comments should be given as well. For example, if I were you, I would say, actually there are 4 sites on the International UNESCO Heritage List. And they are, in our country, they are the Mir Complex, the Belaverskaya National Park, the Neslish Palace, and the Struve Ark. But I believe that only 3 of them are really worth visiting because they can be interesting for tourists. Why don't you go first of all to the Neslish Palace? Because then the Mir Castle the Mir Complex is close to it. So if I were you, I would go to that place. It will be the second tourist destination for me, and so on. Okay? So, once again, how many pieces of advice should you give? Of course, the more the better, but at least 3 of them. Yes? And now you will see some ideas for how to begin your advice. And I'd like to remind you the types of questions. So 1 question for each type could be perfect. Please practice because it makes us perfect. Thank you.